the price, and I'm counting up the cost, and I know the sacrifice. Oh, and I don't want to die for you, but the guy is asking me. I'll bear that cross without her, and freedom comes from me. I'm an American soldier, an American, beside my brothers and my sisters. I'll proudly take a stand when liberty's in jeopardy. I will always do what's right. I'm out here on the front lines, so sleep in peace tonight. American soldier, I'm an American soldier. Yeah, American soldier, an American, beside my brothers and my sisters. I'll proudly take a stand when liberty's in jeopardy. I will always do what's right. I'm out here on the front lines. Sleep in peace tonight. American soldier. I'm an American. Yeah, that's for all those who gave their lives all through the years, but especially the ones on D-Day. All right, now we're going to pick it up a new one from one of the greatest Patriots of all time, Charlie Daniels. Well, the eagle's been flying slow, but the flag's been flying low, and a lot of people think that Americans fix will fall. Must be just for me and some people in Tennessee. I've got a thing or two to tell you all. This lady may have stumbled, but she ain't never failed. If our enemies don't believe that they can all go straight to well, we're gonna put our feet back on the path of righteousness and live. God bless America again. And you never did think that it ever would happen again. In America, did you? You never did think that we'd ever get together again. Well, we don't sure fools, you walk real proud and we're talking real loud again. In America, you never did think that it ever would happen again. From the south on Long Island, out to San Francisco Bay, and
What do you think of that?
between there is our home. We might have done it well, man, fighting amongst ourselves, but you outside people best leave us alone. Cause we'll all stick together, you take that to the bank. That's the cowboys and the hippies, and the rebels and the Yanks. You just go and lay your hands on one memorial stand, and I think you're gonna finally understand that you never did think that it ever would happen again. In America, did you? You never did think that we'd ever get together again. And we don't sure fools, you were walking real proud and we're talking real loud again. In America, you never did think that it ever would happen again. All right. I'm on this side. And never did think that it ever would happen again. In America, DG never did think that we'd ever get together again. If you darn sure fools, you go walking real proud and talking real loud again. In America, you never did think that it ever would happen again. And I don't think it's going to happen again, don't you know?
Yes, amen. Fix it first, right?
32.
All right, well, we're not too far down the road from Antietam Battlefield, so this song means a lot, performing it not too far from there. This is a song written back in the 1970s. It was written by 3 different Civil War songs, all put together as songs about coming back together and reuniting as a country. Elvis made it famous.
Carpenters for Liberty. It's on there as one of the blog posts. Okay, it's right in there.
Oh, I wish I was
This right here is what he's going to be.
in the land of God. Old times there are not forgotten. Look away, look away, look away. Dixieland.
So much.
Sing it. Oh, Dixieland, that's where I was born. Running on one frosty morn. Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland. Glory, glory. Little baby, don't you cry.
I hear that.
You know your daddy bound to die. But all my trials, Lord, soon be over.
The Lord has said it is justice in the crowd.
beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesty above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful, spacious skies, the amber waves of grain, the purple mountains, majesty above them free plains. America, America, God has shed His grace on thee, and He crowned thy good with brotherhood. See the shining sun. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I want to do a couple more for you. I'll do one more song, and then we're going to do the national anthem. And if you want to look for me on your social media sites, you can find me Facebook. That's what you want to call it. Fascist book. I didn't say that. Anyway, Facebook. That's a good one too. Kevin W. Booth. You can find me there. Truth Social. Kevin Booth Sings. You can find me there.
Yeah, Truth Social. Here we go.
Twitter. You can find me at Fed Up, West Virginia. Twitter.
Wait, I've been on your website.
Fed Up, West Virginia.
I got banned from
And you can find, look up Kevin Booth on YouTube. You can find music videos and stuff on there.
Again, Truth Social, what?
Truth Social's Kevin Booth Sings.
Got it. I'm doing it.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody knows this one. If tomorrow all the things were gone I've worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and it can't take that away. To the hills of beautiful Tennessee, all across the plains of great Texas, oh, from sea to shining sea. Tennessee. Well, from Detroit on down to Houston, and Hagerstown to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget all the ones who died, who gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget all the ones who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the Thank you.
Kevin will be doing a show July 1st for me out in Leitersburg at the Leitersburg Volunteer Activity Center. Full 2-hour show. It's God and Country show, and it's to benefit the American Legion Chapter 10 riders for their show. It's an outdoor show. We'll be set up on a hay wagon, calling it an official stage. But anyway, we're going to make it happen out here. July 1st, Friday night, 7 to 9. So.
Put that on the calendar.
And he filled in at the last minute. Lisa Shaw normally sings for me for these meetings, and she came down with COVID over at her college in Emmitsburg, and did not make it tonight. So Kevin's, I called him real quick, and he says, "Sure, no problem." So he's always my go-to guy. So thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you for having me, Rick. I appreciate that. And I'm going to leave some business cards back here on Rick's table back here. If y'all have any events you want me to come to and sing out, I'll be glad to
He
do
does
that for
Elvis,
you.
he does Conway Twitty, and he's awesome at everything that he does.
Country, rock and roll, we'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So. All right, we're going to do our national anthem now, so if anybody wants to rise. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang there, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Would you want?
Yes, it is.
That's more that. That's more.
Okay, sir. Is that what you have?
No, not quite.
Okay. Yes.
Put this one in your pocket, please.
Sir, thank you, thank you.
Anything I can do to help?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Oh, that's all right. A little warming. No, yeah.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Nice to see you.
See you, I saw you out at the cafeteria.
Oh, yeah, that was fun. Me too.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Good job, man.
That's
Tell Abby, let me know how she likes her book.
I sure gonna love it. She'll be digging in that tonight, I guarantee you.
Wasn't too bad. It's just regular 70, like, ongoing, steady traffic.
yeah, you gotta follow.
Did you get like a chicken pen or something?
Yeah.
Do you live near here?
So they're not running
I
around.
don't know here.
Right, well, I have a couple of those, like, let them still let them out, but I had an option to
So if they like get out and look at it and say,
I'm a Frederick.
You had to come up with infamous 70 bus down?
Yeah, I moved to Frederick to, so I was working at Fort Detrick, so I was like, I'm 1 mile from Fort Detrick, but obviously now I'm working from home, so.
You work at Fort Detrick and you're not loving it?
No, I didn't drink the water. I stayed away. Bottled water only.
That place is terrible.
you can move everything around to get some new last.
Yeah, so I actually.
Okay, everyone, we're going to be starting in just a minute. Want to welcome everyone to the Cobblers and Carpenters of Western Maryland.
So working at Fort Detrick. So what?
Believe in acres?
Yeah, I guess that's where I was at.
I waited. Fred, he's family too, by the way.
Which is wrong, you know.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're here to talk. I want to welcome everyone to the Cobblers and Carpenters of Western Maryland. The purpose of the Cobblers is for liberty. First there was unity, then we had the Declaration of Independence, then finally freedom. And to keep that freedom, we must always have unity. United we stand, divided we fall. What the namesake for this is the two cobblers we have, or the two gentlemen we have here, Roger Sherman and George Walton. Yeah. Sorry, I can't pronounce Roger Sherman. Yeah. They signed the Constitution, and they were just regular, everyday folks, and they did their part. And it's really interesting that, you know, two laymen were foundational, one of the 56 people that signed the Constitution, and there's a place for all of us to do something to help serve our country. So I want to thank everyone for coming out and for the entertainment. We would like to take just one moment of silence for you to reflect on the things that you're grateful for. And all the things you're endeavoring to do with your life. So let's just take a moment of silence. Okay. So how did we choose this name? The eulogy of Charles Carl, the last signing member of the Declaration of Independence to die, was an educational resource for the history of our founders. Just for everyone to know, if you want to find the eulogy, it is part of the Carpenters and Cobblers and carpentersforliberty.com on the blog. You can also go to openlibrary.org, and you can get an online copy of the book and read it for yourself. I actually started reading it myself, and it's really interesting. And it really has some things in there where you can tell just how world-changing the formation of America was, and it's very inspirational. I encourage you to take some time to read it. Part of what we learned was the Declaration of Independence at an average age of 45. There were two self-educated gentlemen. One was a carpenter, and the other was a cobbler. Patriots come in all shapes and forms. We don't need to be worldly or celebrities. We just have to have a love for our country and our values, and to work together for common goals. And with that, we will listen to the words of Mojo.
Getting scared? Scared? I ain't never gonna be scared no more. I was though. For a while it looked as though we was beat. Good. Looked like we didn't have nobody in the whole wide world but enemies. Like nobody was friendly no more. Made me feel kind of bad and scared too. Like we was lost and nobody cared.
You all want to keep this going, huh? I ain't no good no more, and I know it. Seems like I spend all the time these days thinking how it used to be. Thinking of home. I ain't never gonna see it no more.
Well, Pa, a woman can change better than a man. A man lives sort of, well, in jerks. Baby's born or somebody dies, and that's a jerk. He gets a farm or loses it, and that's a jerk. Well, a woman, it's all in one flow like a stream. Little eddies and waterfalls, but the river it goes right on. A woman looks at it that way.
Maybe. We sure taking a beating.
I know. That's what makes us tough. Rich fellas come up, they die, and their kids ain't no good and they die out. But we keep a-coming. We're the people that live. They can't wipe us out, they can't lick us. We'll go on forever, Pa, 'cause we're the people.
So the core concept of this group, plan is to be a separate group that isn't bound by the 501c3. We want to be able to, so we do work with other organizations, but the purpose of this one is that way we can talk about all kinds of issues and not be constrained by rules or different laws. Long term, we want to see change using Article 5 of the Constitution. So we're based in our actual governmental constitutional framework, and I think that's really important. That was a big draw for me. I know there are lots of groups out there, but this one is basing its position from the United States Constitution, and that just makes me feel really good supporting the organizations that come from that constitutional framework. Short term, we're working on short-term projects, activities, election integrity, voter candidate engagement. We have some people here to engage with today, and I'm looking forward to hearing from them later today, myself. And also we want to open up opportunities to teach and to learn more about our civics, not only for ourselves, but our children and our families. Unity in our country by collaborating with like-minded groups. We can solve our nation's problems by starting locally. And this is where it is. This is federalism. This is part of what our founders gave us.
Through all these developments, government more and more escapes the control of the people. Though in townships and villages, school districts and towns, citizens still make decisions for themselves. The room for decision daily shrinks. because each must be made in the context of responsibility and power lost to a distant bureaucracy. Framers of the Constitution could not foresee the exact causes that might bring about such a trend, but they knew that the potential danger existed. Only an inspired and educated citizen will provide the power to keep America from following the paths of earlier civilizations, in which the love of country, the dedication of service to the society, weakened through the love of ease and the worship of affluence. Against the possibility that ordinary and customary processes of self-government might weaken or be found ineffective, or later laws and interpretations of original constitutional intent might conflict with the mass convictions of Americans, the founders provided a final and decisive means of reformation and restoration by the people themselves. Through their state legislatures and without regard to the federal government, the people can demand and participate in constitutional conventions, in which they can, through their own action, adopt such amendments as will reverse any trends they see as fatal to true representative government. I do not here refer to any amendment presently proposed or under consideration by the several states. Moreover, constitutional amendment is not to be lightly undertaken. But if you and your generation, fortified by a superb education, with access to the knowledge and wisdom of the ages, and imbued with the spirit of our founders, decide that reformation of a radical kind becomes due, then I say, let nothing stop you. Study, examine, survey, think, consider, and decide, and then, by all means, act. May you be a generation that a half-century hence can proudly say, we maintained and furthered the American experiment born in 1776 and confirmed in 1789. We made certain that in our time, freedom's flag would be more firmly nailed to the masthead of self-government. In short, we helped the nation to march on in faithful dedication to our own ideals to fulfillment of our destiny. Godspeed.
So let's give you an introduction to Article 5, and as we just heard, there is a time to act, and that is now. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. I've never really participated in political forums, but we have really big problems. We have spending, and this is nonpartisan. You talk to anybody, and everybody knows that there's too much spending in government. We know that there's federal overreach, and we know that there are career politicians that the longer they're in power, the more favors their and interests that they get with their cohorts, and those interests no longer are the interests of the American people. So the debt and spending crisis, regardless of who's in office, it is just keep going up, and it's unsustainable. I mean, I remember 2010, they were talking about getting to 11 trillion. Now we're almost at 30 trillion. You know, it is just explosive. Our national debt and federal spending are not.
Real quick, our gross national product, at best, 24 trillion. We have per year, whatever. That's as much as the country can produce. Everybody working, full employment. And if we're 30 trillion, we're becoming Greece by the day. And you know what happened in Greece?
Yeah, and the Weimar and
Weimar Republic. There you go.
And everyone else that goes down this road. I mean, this is the path to ruin, and everyone who's interested in keeping themselves from those types of situations really need to pay attention. I mean, we can see here, this is an older one, but this is when it was at 27.7 trillion, and you can see that really doesn't matter who's in office, it's going up and up and up. But it's not so much just the president, it's the members of Congress that are just keeping that moving along. Regulations without end. We have a bureaucracy where the Congress is giving federal agencies the ability to make rulemaking, and so they just go and make these rules, and they actually create laws, and they're unaccountable. They don't have to live under these laws, and it's all for growling and controlling where maybe they shouldn't be. Maybe that should be left to the states and not the federal government. And now we have 3,000 pages with $1.4 million words that now is what our Constitution actually is, because it's all that case law and everything else that has come over the time. Our Constitution is actually far more complicated than it was originally intended. And so what we're seeing is a lot of what should have been federalized power moving directly and centrally into a smaller and smaller group of people's hands at the national level. We have career politicians, 36 years, 41 years. Some of these people have been in office almost longer than I've been alive. And I'm no spring chicken.
Joe Biden's gotten beat by a mile. Another 6 years for Joe Biden. 49.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You forgot Steny.
Steny Hoyer.
No, Steny needs to be up there.
There's just the amount of time in those 41 years or 46 years or even 33 years, you get into so many deals and you start to do so many things that now you're not dealing in the interest of the American people, you're dealing in the interest of your power.
And actually, if you look at every one of them made their riches while in office.
That's right.
Every one of them.
That's right.
Including Biden, and he's getting richer by the day with China. So.
Well, don't forget the three on the left.
Oh,
also have connections to the Chi-Coms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's big connections to the Chinese communists.
Right, but we can say that they don't have the connections to the American people.
No,
exactly.
I mean, it doesn't. Again, without being partisan. How are they serving the interests of the American people? I got to see the President of the United States say, oh, we're out of baby food. Shucks. We're going to have a food crisis. Sorry about that. This prices necessarily will rise.
The so-called president, because that's why elections are so important for people to do their due diligence. And we need to get away from voting machines, just saying.
No, so exactly. So, and that's some of the things that we want to talk about, and that's what we want to bring, because there's a lot of very rich people who have a lot of money to throw around to organizations to say, you should, voting should be, you should be able to go to a website and click a vote button. That's how easy they want it to be, because then there's no accountability.
I started running for office 2.5 months ago. I was called by a friend of mine, I considered him a friend, from the county commissioner's office, one of the county commissioners, and questioned me because one of his friends was also running, and asked me if I had the $30,000 it was going to take to buy the sheriff's office. I said, I'm not trying to buy an office. I said, it shouldn't be about money. It should be about the best person for the job for the people. It has nothing to do with money. And you hear it every day. It's like, well, this person ain't going to win because they don't have thousands of dollars in their account. This person ain't going to win because they don't have money in their account. It's not supposed to be about that.
Right, and it doesn't have to be that way. I think last election cycle there were a few people that, with very little money, they were so disenfranchised with their current representation that they, in New Jersey, there was one guy, I think it was just
Teddy Dane was $189.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible, really connecting with people with the right ideas and looking to, really represent them. Oh, my. So this brings us to the Article 5. Okay, Article 5 of the Constitution is where we talk about the ability to make amendments. just so everyone knows, we are never ever talking about a constitutional convention. We're always talking about a convention of states where we introduce new articles or to the current constitution. So, where we can get legislatures, 2/3 of the several states, that's 34, we can call a convention through our local representatives, right? Our delegates, Neil Perry, and Carl, Cardman? Cardman is our state senator?
Paul Gordon.
Yeah,
Paul Gordon.
Gordon. So, you know, they're accessible. You know, they come here. You can talk to them. I've met Neil several times over the years, and you know, I'm not even in politics, state fairs, things like that. I've had an opportunity to see him. And with that, we can propose amendments, and then with 30, and then it needs to be passed. This is not easy. This is a difficult road, but it's constitutional, and I'm really excited to be a part of this. And you know, this is the first time I've ever gotten up and stood in front of other people to talk about this kind of stuff. But I'm really pleased to be here and planning on getting better at it. So with that, so I'd like to introduce Rick. He is the Convention of States District Captain for 2A, 2B.
Well, I'm a regional captain now, and I got all of 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So,
Wow.
You know,
Busy man.
I grew up from 1 volunteer to 18 volunteers here in Washington County, and they said, well, let's see what you can do all the way across this western portion of the state. So I took on the added responsibility. Have Rob out here tonight taking on the first bits of just talking generic thing about Article 5. And the thing I like to point out on the Article 5 is that, you know, we could have an Article 5 convention on everybody having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on Wednesdays every week if we can get 33 other states to support that. Okay? So good luck with that. Okay? So that's where Convention of States action that I'm a regional captain for comes into play. So up here I said, hello everyone, and I'm going to use Article 5 slides here in a second, but I have a question for you about this quote. We pledge our lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. Who were they pledging to?
We the people. The Constitution.
Yeah, they were making that pledge to each other, all 56. They said, we're in this, you know, we're in this together. It's like the moment when you get ready to jump out of the airplane, you know, the guy tapped me on the leg, put his thumb up or put his thumb down, and I put my thumb back up and out the door we went. You're committed at that point. There's no change in your mind, okay?
And what did they face from the king? The crown.
The lives.
Disembowelment.
Yeah, the lives, the fortunes, the sacred honor, their lives, I mean, many of them, and when you read the eulogy of Charles Carroll, you'll figure out in there that there was many of them that didn't live to see the end of the war. And there were several that did, right? And Charles Carroll was the last. You know, he's the 56th. Of the 56, he died in the 56th year after it was signed. I found that very intriguing, okay? But let's move to the next slide. Our plan with Convention of States action is to use the Article 5 exactly for the purposes that the founders envisioned, to call a Convention of States to propose amendments that limit the power of the federal government, not to take away the people's rights, as many of our naysayers out there will tell you. They're trying to say you're going to take away the Second Amendment, you're going to take away First Amendment. No, the whole purpose of this is to rein in the federal government, to put controls and put restrictions on them so they don't take over our lives and try to control us. That's the purpose of it. And when you go to these other states that we're trying to get through, and we're trying to get through in Maryland, all the people from Common Cause and John Birch Society, all these other groups that come out against us, that's what they're complaining about, is that they don't want us to go forward because we're going to take all their individual rights away. No, that is not true. It's all about containing the federal government. We've got the solution that's as big as the problem. So when everybody's out there fighting all these frontline battles and all these different variations, this is the one that's already prescribed in the Constitution. But you know, since 1789, it's been there, but it's never been called. Why? Because it's not easy. Okay? The people lead. Citizens ask their state legislators to sponsor and support the Convention of States Resolution. Okay? We're out there getting petitions signed. We have 29,000 petitions, well, nearly 29,000 here in Maryland. Okay? So we are making progress. We think if we get to 50,000, we will have enough to really influence the people to be able to stand up. I know the head of the committee for the House In her district, there's only 12 petition signers. She doesn't think we exist. She thinks we're just a gnat flying around bugging her, okay? We got 1,100 out here in Washington County. When we can get the center of the state to get signatures down there, the same we're getting out here, that's when we make a difference. We change systems. The House and the Senate have to act. The state legislature will sponsor the COS resolution and files it with his or her state legislator. Mark Fisher filed a petition on the House side, and Justin Reddy out of Carroll County filed on the Senate side. The COS resolution passes out of committee and goes to floor vote in both chambers. Well, we can't get out of the committees. This is the first year we got it out into the Senate. We thought we were going to get out. We never made it to crossover day, though. Only 9 people in that committee, right, which is, doesn't seem bad if 4 Democrats, only seems 4 were Republicans and 5 were Democrats. So we thought for sure we're going to sway 2 of those Democrats and get out. We didn't make it. In the House, there's 26 members in that committee, of which I think only 2 are Republican. And that head of that committee, as I said, she has 12 petition signers in her district. So that's where we're stuck at, the House Rules and Executive Nominations Committee. So we got a strategy for that next year. We're meeting on June 18th to be able to put some plans together for that. Okay, so some history about the congressional record S5012 from 9/11/2017. Maryland has actually taken up the matter of Article 5 times in the past. 1935, 64, 65, 73, and 75. For the taxing power of the government in 35, for size and boundaries of congressional districts. Did we just go through something with that just recently?
With a lawsuit.
How long has that been going on, right? Right? Requesting legislative autonomy over our state legislative bodies in 65, school prayer in 73, and then balanced budget in 75. But these bills never moved forward because they never was able to get the 2/3 majority across the nation to move forward, so they've kind of floundered. In 2017, our legislator, under Larry Hogan, he signed off on it. They rescinded all prior applications. All these were rescinded, but with this caveat. They said the need to advance these policy reforms should be debated anew and not bind future generations without consideration. So therein, based on what I've done on my readings on that, that's the importance of allowing us to go forward out of the committee and get to the floor based on their cancellations in 2017, all these other 5 proposals. So, once the convention finally gets called, you get 34 states, and we currently have 19 states on board. West Virginia was state number 18. Thank you to our West Virginia neighbors down there. 19 was South Carolina. There's a chance this year, in 2022, we'll get 3 more states, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and possibly Ohio. So those legislators are still in meeting. Even Massachusetts, a very blue state, Massachusetts, it went into the House committee and came out unanimously, voted to go unanimously to the floor on first pass. I am a very blue Democrat in Massachusetts state, so they can do it. And they can become the first blue state to pass. Man, we can be right behind them on their heels. Okay, this is an example of what would be sent out on model legislation. The legislature of the state of Maryland hereby advises Congress on the provisions of Article 5 for the calling of the Convention of States limited to proposing amendments to the Constitution of the United States to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for its officials and members of Congress. That's what we're trying to get through. That's all 19 states have signed so far, have exactly signed that same exact resolution. They can't deviate, and that's the problem. There's other folks out there, friends of Article 5 and a few other places, are trying to do Article 5 conventions, but they're going at it, which is one caveat, or they're trying to lump together a whole bunch of other ones together and say, look, we've got enough, but it has to be sort of pass muster and all the court battles that will follow, I'm sure. And this will be another one of the documents that's a model from model legislation. They did back in 2017 or so, I think they did a mock convention in Williamsburg, and they went in and tried to put together several of the amendments. Amendments were proposed. Delegates will propose, debate, and vote on amendments limited to the language of that COS resolution we just saw. Proposed amendments outside of that agenda will be out of order. So that's where everyone says, they're going to go in and take away this and take away that. No, if it doesn't fall within that 3 things proposed, it doesn't go anywhere. Okay? Now notice up here, it says 26, 24. You can send as many people, as many delegates from your state as you want to send. However, each state only gets 1 vote. That is where the other, the opposition party has the problems. They think that the New Yorks, the Californias, they ought to have more than 1 vote because they're bigger. They get 1 vote per state to be able to ratify whatever's going to come out of that to go to the 50 states. And once all 50 states get it, 38 have to pass it. So if it's a bad bill, if it's something that doesn't seem like it's going to work, all it takes to fail it, to kick it back, is 13 states to say no. Okay? That's how tough this whole process is. That's why it's never happened before, because getting 2/3 of the states, that's 34, doing a call the convention, getting it out of committee with the 26 to 24 minimum vote, and then getting it out to all 50 states and have them come up with 38 to say yes. This is a tough process, so it won't happen just quickly. It'll happen because we want it to happen and we have unity. At that point, then the Constitution is amended, and we can all clap and rejoice and know that this country is going to live on another day. And we know that the support of this is well taken. When you look at the support by parties, 75% of Republicans support it, 55% of Democrats support it, and even 62% of Independents support the Article 5 Convention of States. So we know we have the resolutions. Now tonight, I had a total of 7 candidates that had responded back that were coming tonight. I had 3 Democrats supposed to be here, and I don't see them. I see Mr. Lasher here from the independent point of view, so I appreciate that. Libertarian, I'm sorry. Well, I'm a little stuck on that independent language up here. So, but the key to it is that if we don't have unity, we're not talking, we're never going to get anything done. We have to have that unity. So we're voting on the nation's largest grassroots army. There were volunteer leadership in over 50 states with over 5 million plus volunteers. There were 70 type of district captains. Every legislative district in every state should have a district captain out there forming relationships with their legislators, forming relationships with their fellow constituents. So that our goal as a district captain is to reach, teach, and activate. Reach them, through county fairs and booths and whatever, and teach them about what this is, like we're doing tonight, and then activate them, getting them to go out and find their inner patriot, ripping that shirt open and saying, let's make it happen then, okay? I've been screaming bloody murder for 2 years now, ever since Peter showed up and took 2 tigers and lions from my little zoo out in Cumberland. That's what brought my inner patriot out, and I haven't shut up since. Hi.
Believe me, he hasn't.
Yeah.
How do you become a COS volunteer? This is always the hard part. People always say, oh yeah, I'll check off the box, I'll sign the petition. But how do you go from checking the box to getting involved, okay? Well, becoming a volunteer is just go to our website, conventionstates.com, choose the Take Action tab, join a volunteer team. There's some fancy titles there like media liaison, legislative liaison, district captain, regional captain. There's some real fancy roles on there. Just start with volunteer activists and get started there and allow us district captains to wean you through and work you up and develop you, so we don't expect too much from you to overwork you. Input your information. There's just 9 questions. They're real easy, and then you can electronically sign the application and confidentiality. One of the things we make people promise to do is if we get access to names and phone numbers, they're not going out and dox people and show up at Supreme Court justices' homes and make them feel like they're prisoners in their homes. We make people promise they won't do that kind of thing. Okay, bottom line, you need to have a heart for the cause and a mind that will be instructed to follow through on the mission of saving our country. So that's what we want for Convention of States volunteers. What do you do once you're a volunteer? Well, initially, you just are a sponge. You're just reading and learning and absorbing and getting confident. And then we start taking action. Have you download up a COS Pocket Guide? Have you get our Slack application for your smartphone? Start following us on social media. Join your state team conference calls. Learn what's happening. Once you feel braver, develop that elevator speech. Go start talking to your family and friends to practice it, and then go out and start talking to people in the street. I go up to folks and say, man, that beard, you have to do some catching up with me. Mine's my instant master too, and I'll start a conversation about a beard. Next thing you know, I got my Convention of States card right in their hand, and we're moving forward with trying to reach and teach them and then get them to activate. Okay, so there's a lot you can do. If you're feeling confident, there's more you can do. You can write letters to the local legislators. If you want to get out and get involved, writing letters in the newspaper, sharpening your saw, there's all kinds of educational courses you can take. We have some Constitution courses and everything we make available, so there's a lot of training you can get through Convention of States. So by all means, if you're interested, take advantage of that. Every volunteer is important, and the fascinating part is you can form cross-alliances with other groups. Like tonight we have the Tea Party group here with us. Well, that's good because, that's one battle that's being fought. Patriot Appearance, Washington County has been in one of the meetings. That's another battle. So all of you can go out and fight different frontline battles, skirmishes, like the Minutemen behind the little brick walls and everything. But bottom line, we know the end goal is Article 5. It's up there. That is the way we're going to solve this problem, is by Article 5 and getting that in place. It's already there in the Constitution. I always tell everybody, my theory of life is 1 + 1 = 3. It's not what you do, it's not what I do, it's when we do it together and we make a difference. I figure I'm as good as the best, but I'm not better than the rest, and if I help you win, I win too. And we can do that by working with the different legislators of our own. I tell folks all the time that I wear many different hats. It's on my emails when I send out. I have my Patriot hat on now, You know, when I'm in full Uncle Sam mode, if you have seen me, my full Uncle Sam outfit and the overcoat and everything, I'm out there, I'm in Uncle Sam mode, I'm in full political gear then, but I'm in my Modern Wood of America hat, going out there as a life insurance agent, as a member, doing fraternal good deeds, trying to make good things happen, and then one fell on the floor there, but that was my dad's old hat. I was a kid that grew into my dad's old hat, you know, that you learn how to go out and just wear different hats at different times because you have to serve different roles. I've been told every good leader was once a good follower, and you got to be able to go in and learn what you have to do, and then take it out there and then lead, because people aren't going to follow somebody who they don't feel is real. Okay, you gotta go out there and put the pressure on to do things based on your heart and your belief, and that's where the people that sign the declaration, they have a heart for the cause and a mind so instructed that they can follow through on that mission, and I believe that entirely. So we can't do this alone. We're all in this together. Synergy, different groups working together will make all of our goals reachable. We all share common goals and desired outcomes. The Convention of States is the only plan with a spot already in the Constitution with Article 5. But there are other battles, the county, the precinct level, they're all going to see huge rewards of us all working together. So unity, as I said on that beginning screen, unity came first before the Declaration of Independence. Freedom came after. But if we're going to keep that freedom, we must continue to have unity. That's so important. All right, now we're going back to our regular meeting of Cobblers and Carpenters. Our goal here is to help you find a way to let your inner patriot emerge and do the right thing for our country. Here's a little clip from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington you might find interesting.
Get up there with that lady that's up on top of this Capitol, that lady that stands for liberty. Take a look at this country through her eyes if you really want to see something. And you won't just see scenery. You'll see the whole parade of what man's carved out for himself after centuries of fighting. Fighting for something better than just jungle. And so he can stand on his own 2 feet, free and decent, like he was created. No matter what his race, color, or creed. That's what you see. There's no place out there for graft, or greed, or lies, or compromise with human liberties. And if that's what the grown-ups have done with this world that was given to them, then we better get those boys' camps started fast and see what the kids can do. And that's not too late. Because this country is bigger than the Taylors, or you, or me, or anything else. Great principles don't get lost once they come to light. They're right here. You just have to see them again.
Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne, two of my childhood heroes. I think there's in every movie, on every channel, the 4 or 5 you can click on to get through. So let's hear from some of the other groups maybe in attendance, from the Tea Party I know is here, the Democrat Club, the Republican Club, and any of the candidates is here. This is the time to take the floor and open it up. Go around the room, let everybody have a chance to speak and ask questions. My question to any of the candidates here is, what are you going to do to bring unity to our communities and to our country? That's my only question for each of the candidates as it comes around to you, and then kind of go from there. So, all right, so I'll start right here and go and work our way around the room. All right, I'll let Rob introduce himself, but he's just about a 2-month now volunteer with me, and I couldn't be prouder of his performance tonight. He feels he has some work to do, and that's all right. I stand here now as the sum total of all my mistakes in life. Okay, but it's when you make those mistakes, you learn and you move forward and you get better for the next time. So, thank you for presenting. Why don't you tell us just a moment about yourself, and we'll work our way around the table with everybody then. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Rob Fergus. I just started volunteering. I think there's a lot. So one of the reasons why I personally really gravitated towards the Convention of States is it truly is nonpartisan. It may seem that way. It may seem like it's for a Republican or a conservative side, but it's not. It's really all about power. Right now, you have the power of the nation slowly being consolidated more and more into fewer and fewer hands. And I think that that power should come back to the states. I want my delegate to have more power. I want my state senator to have more power. Because when they have more power, then the will of the people in the state are able to be seen versus what's happening now where they decide that they're not going to do anything. I would love it where I think part of the Convention of the States, one of the things they're looking at is repealing the 17th Amendment, which is the state senators.
There's
Or
that'll all happen at the
yeah, that's true. But I saw something about that, and that really, I found that fascinating, that if we could get back to the states, the national senators being appointed instead of elected, that would bring a lot of power back to the states. So I think we should be governed. I'm not anti-government, and I think that you can see there are a lot of states that that are blue states or red states. But one of the things we do know is that the power that's concentrated in Washington isn't for a state. It's for a small group of people, and it's just not healthy, and everyone can tell. I have Democrat friends, some of my neighbors are Democrats, and even they're like, what's going on? Things aren't right. And so if I had to say anything, my interest is seeing power not disperse, or not go away, but come back to the state. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. As you guys speak, I'd like to hear some of you are running for office, what you'll do, because we, through authorizing you to represent us, we are giving you power. So I think that's my spiel.
Thanks, Rob.
I am Rick Bibby's wife most of the days. We have been married 40 years. He keeps trying to sell me for $1. Sometimes it goes to 50 cents. But I am a preacher's kid, and I always say, this is not our Father's world right now. We need to come back and get God back into a lot more of these decisions and bring it back around so that we can make him proud for what he did for us. But Rick is really hardworking. I get mad at him because he's here, there, and I'm like, what about us? Where's our time? Where's our... Well, I'm sitting here watching TV with you right now. No, that's not the same. So, but he is 100% committed. It gets to me sometimes, but he is trying to take and help and give back and make a difference. So that is a good thing. So we might make it to 41. I don't know. It's still...
Jury's still out?
Yeah. He kept saying he was going to train me in for 2 20-year-olds. He's doing interviews now. I kept saying, I want a better contract. I want more benefits. Neither one of us got what we want, so we're on a month-to-month lease. That's how we're working it right now.
Write that up.
It's beginning of June, so yeah. I'm like, I don't know.
There we go. I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
You gotta have a sense of humor in marriage, huh?
We are total opposites too. He came from the bad side of town. I grew up being a preacher's kid. We met in the middle. And that's what we need to do with this government right now. We need to come together, meet in the middle, and make a difference. So that is my take. Thank you.
Next.
Ann Larson, I just live in Washington County, and I just came to learn what this is all about. I don't really have...
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
David, I'm Michelle's husband. I share all the concerns that everybody's expressed here today. I'm really here on more of a curiosity and fact-finding process. I am kind of curious about the notion that we have 19 states on board with the Convention of States. What does that really mean?
19 states have all signed that resolution that I had on the screen. They've all signed exactly the same, requesting the same resolution. Term limits, reining in federal spending, reining in federal overreach. It's all went to all their legislators, went through committee, out of committee, went to the floor on both houses, and they've said yes.
Okay, so it's not binding, but it just shows level of support.
It says, yes, they're on board for us to go to Congress and say, we now have the 34 states. Congress tell us the time, date, place to hold our convention.
Okay. So then that just begs the question, there's 15 more needed. Has anybody done, I'm sure they have, my question is, what is the assessment of the next 15 of probability? Like, there's got to be 5 right in front going, well, they're close.
North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio may happen this year. We should have had South Dakota this year, but the naysayers got in there and got the Senate, got them all scared, and kind of whizzed down their leg a little bit out there, and they didn't vote vote us out as the Senate to be voted on the floor. Because they listened to all the folks telling them that we're going to destroy the whole country if we do a convention of states. So they backed out. South Dakota, of all places, the House was already passed. If we'd hit the floor, it was voted, and we'd have went forward. We missed out on that, but we'll get that next year.
But there are 15 more needed.
Still 15 more, yeah.
Does it look like a third of those are highly likely, a third is maybe, and a third is when hell freezes over? Just trying to get
That's how hard, it depends on how hard we work.
Yeah.
You know, even if you have a delegate that isn't for it, but all of a sudden he gets 3,000 handwritten letters from different constituents in his district, I mean, it's a very powerful signal that, you know, there's something your constituents
When they start feeling
want.
we can sway the election because, you know, there's like the lady is the head of the Senate committee that holds this. She only has 12 people who've signed the petition in her district.
Think of it this way, you know, 2,000-3,000 people for like Nancy Pelosi or for someone in Congress, not enough. But for your state delegate, it's a lot. I mean, some state delegate races are within, you know, just a few hundred votes. There really aren't that many people voting, you know, local elections. And so it matters.
If you go back and look at, for the last 2 years that I've been involved, we've prepared for the testimony to the Senate and the House. You know, it had been totally Zoom last year. This year we did the Senate in person, and we did the House via Zoom. But we've been preparing. We've been sitting down and having sessions where the first time the person gave their speech or was Zoom practicing, it was 4.5, 5 minutes long. They only give you 2 minutes. So we had to work with the people and hone their speeches down to 2 minutes. So we had 18 of us last year and this year both, for both houses, that we was able to go through and present our speeches. Very powerful. Massachusetts copied our strategy up to theirs. And next thing you know, they came out of the House on first blush and passed to go to the floor. So it's still possible this year. We doubt we'll get it this year, but the fact that it voted out directly to the floor this year was a very positive sign. They're screaming bloody murder the praises of Massachusetts, and Massachusetts is praising us for what we did here in Maryland to organize ourselves to practice and have a matter of fact. They trapped us on the House this year. We done the Senate live in person, and all 18 of us did. And then a week later, they gave us 36 hours notice. We had to testify at 8 in the morning on a Monday, I think. Okay, so very little notice. But you know what? We had it all done, and when we signed up signed up for it, we all signed up in order the way we wanted to speak. So when we got there, we asked to be able to speak in an order we gave. It's just no, we're taking the order they signed up, which is exactly what we wanted. So it worked out, and we built to a crescendo. Every speech built on each other, so that Steve Patton at the end tied it all together and asked everybody in the room to stand up and support us. So we had a very, very good strategy in terms of how we're starting to attack this, and that's what we're learning each year. I'll have a meeting on June 18th, strategy session for next session, as we go to start planning how we're going to attack, what's going on down there, to be able to go out and find those committee members and do things in their areas and get people to call them in their areas to get those committee members to pay attention, because that's where we're stuck at in the committee right now. So we're getting there. But the other states, there's several more that I know we're going to get as time goes by. But the more you hear the naysayers beating their drum nice and loud out there about how awful we are, that says we're getting a nerve, that they're getting nervous. Okay, so the more you start hearing about all the country's going to blow up if ministries go through, that's the common cause people and everything. I've got pages and pages of every time they say something, we have the objectives that are coming. We've got all that together, so it's coming. It's going to get there, and I think if you follow this, starting now, know what you know, and start following it, I think you're going to be impressed with what you're going to see going forward. Your wife was down with Mark Becker, the head of Convention of States. He was here in Frederick, Maryland the other night, and we drug her up on stage. Michelle got up on stage and got a chance to talk and tell about how she found her way into this. So that's what it takes. It takes people standing up and saying, I'm not going to take it anymore, and we need to make our voices heard. That's how we make the difference. And when you do that to your own legislator, and especially if you're in one of those areas that aren't really sold on it so far, and you get them to switch their view, that's how we change America. One district at a time. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Hi, Bill.
Yes, I'm Bill Williams, running for sheriff for Washington County. I got involved to answer your question about unity of community and country. After the first debate that happened here in February, I wasn't able to attend, but John was here with the Tea Party. Took very good notes, sent me copies of the notes, and I read the notes on there, what each candidate had said. sitting back thinking this is just all the same political rhetoric that happens every time. So I started checking into it. I ended up signing up in the end of March, I believe, to run for sheriff. I had to run unaffiliated because the other three guys have already been running for a year, year and a half. Been met with opposition every chance I come around. Found out that pretty much our sheriff's department, all of our deputies, everybody in the sheriff's department have not had a First Amendment right for 26 years since the incumbent sheriff has been in there. They are not allowed to have any other candidate signs in their yards. They are not allowed to talk about any other candidates. They are not allowed to do anything with any other agency whatsoever, or they either get blackballed or fired. I've heard from numerous people about the same thing. Deputies have quit because of the morale in the sheriff's department being so bad. So that inspired me even more. I have 6 kids that I raised here in Washington County. I still have 2 more that had to go through high school. And you know, a lot that inspired me was the Truckers Convoy was one that inspired me to get up and get out and do something and get involved. And I figured with my background of being a fugitive recovery agent for 24 years, working with people and law enforcement very closely, and being a firearms instructor, that was my best fit to try to make a difference somewhere. And as I've already vowed, as if I would get nominated to be sheriff come November, I'm going to hold a lot of people accountable. We have a non-existent prosecutor's office in Washington County. Being in the bail bond business there again, I've had an upper hand on that. I've been in court many times, a lot of people out that was 100% guilty. You learn a lot from somebody by the time you post bail for them at the jail until you get to your office. They'll tell you their life story, and they'll tell you whether they did the crime or not. And if you follow the crime all the way to the courthouse, I'd say 90% of them got off, plea bargained, or they just dropped the charges. Because for whatever reason, I have no idea. I mean, and some of them are pretty serious charges. I've locked people up on rape charges, child molestation charges, and they get absolutely nothing for it. And it's, you know, I mean, I believe in, you know, the rule of law. If you're innocent, then, you know, God will intervene and make sure everything's right. But if you're guilty, then you need to, you know, be held accountable. And, you know, with our morale at the sheriff's department at an all-time low, I mean, I spoke to a lot of people, and the 3 Republicans that are running, then they heard that I was running, they're like, well, we was going to pick the lesser of the 3 evils. And 2 of them are current sheriff's deputies, have been there over 26 years. So I've actually asked a couple of them, you know, when you take an oath of office, you take the oath of office to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So you've been violating your oath of office for the last 26 years. That I have a problem with. Because if you're in a supervisory position, it's not bad. But if you're the officers on the street, we all know that everything rolls downhill. So they're the ones that are getting the brunt of everything, is all the officers on the street. So, you know, the morale's low, that most of them are even talking about quitting. Now it's even worse with the officers losing their Bill of Rights on July 1st. All the officers in the state of Maryland, their Bill of Rights is gone, which takes the agency's liability away and puts it on the officers back themselves. So anything that happens, whether it be somebody say they were racially motivated, or they just didn't like the cop that locked them up and they decide they want to file a charge on them, then it goes in front of a civilian panel. And thanks to, you know, House Bill 260, now they're allowing felons on as jurors and also to be on the panel against police officers. So the odds are going to be stacked against them. So like I said, accountability is the biggest thing that I want to do if I become sheriff, because if it was my administration, it'd be business as usual. You do your job, what you're supposed to do, and let me deal with the state's attorney's office, let me deal with the commissioner's office, because they're not even putting bails on anybody in Washington County anymore. I mean, I'm talking whatever charges they're getting out. I've done seen child molesters get out, released on their own personal recognizance, arson, you know, first degree, second degree arson, reckless endangerment, released on their own recognizance. That kind of stuff shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be released right back into for the community for everybody to have to deal with. I mean, we've had a lot of crime in Washington County that goes unfounded. That way it keeps the crime numbers down. It's either, okay, well, you need to get a hold of your insurance company, let them deal with it, because it's not going to go anywhere when it goes to the state's attorney anyway. So, I mean, I've contacted the state's attorney, and she's running unopposed in November. I wanted to sit down with her to find out where she stands on crime and everything else that's going on, you know, illegal immigration, drugs, everything else that's happening in this county. I get an email back that says she's not meeting with any sheriff's candidates. So all the other candidates that are telling people that they're going to be tough on crime, they're going to be tough on immigration, they're going to be tough on everything else. Don't you think you have to have the state's attorney and the judge behind you to have that happen? So you can't give people false hope that you're going to do something and there's no way it's going to be done until we get the state on board and the judges on board to make it happen. Now, I would keep making arrests as a sheriff. I would have my officers do their job. If the state takes it back, like I had stated before, I plan on having press conferences and hold them accountable. Let them know every step of the way what happens, whether the commissioners released them, state's attorney refused to prosecute, or when it goes to court, if they got any time or what happens with it. Just keep a running tab of all the cases with the sheriff's department's apprehensions, because the police are getting vilified for everything that happens in this county. They're not realizing that when the police lock somebody up, because I know it from being in the bail business, you lock somebody up, I've even went all over this country and tracked people down, brought them back, locked them up at the detention center, and before I got back to my office, which was 10 minutes away, they're already released again. So it's like you do all the work, and they just get right back out. So, I mean, this whole community definitely needs to get back to God, family, country, because that's where it's got to go. I mean, you know, we need more God's intervention and more people of faith to start stepping up and saying, look, enough's enough. You know, I fight for my kids. I've always been a proponent of a fighter for law enforcement. A lot of the officers know that I have their back, even not being law enforcement, more than their administration does. So if I'm out on the street and I see something happen to somebody, I'm going to stop, because that's how I'm built. 4 years ago, I was a victim of a malicious prosecution charge in Washington County. I had a man pull a knife on me, so I ended up having to draw my firearm on him, had him at gunpoint, ended up cuffing him, had him proned out before the cops even got there. And 2 weeks after me sending emails back and forth to the local police department to find out why this guy was never charged, I get a charge of handgun on person when I have a permit to carry a firearm. Right then, what told me that something needed to happen. You know, we have a situation where it's a breakdown in the state and the police. Even though this gentleman admitted to the police officers, he brought the knife to use on his girlfriend who was in a house with another man. That was the intent. But to squash the whole problem, let's just file a malicious charge. And my lawyer wanted to file a malicious prosecution charge on the state of Maryland. But it would also have to go in the police department too. And our police department has enough black eyes. We don't need it anymore. So I was like, no, we can't do that. I mean, everybody's just got to start, you know, getting together and working for, and it's got to be for the people. I mean, when you take the officer's Bill of Rights away, okay, when you take the First Amendment away, when your ranking sheriff will not let his officers even, I mean, if I was in office and somebody wanted to run against me, hey, that's fine. May the best person win. Whoever can support and do our best job for our people, our civilians of Washington County. That's what it's all about. It ain't me maintaining the job. It should be about the people itself. And that's where all these politicians, and I'm not a politician by far, never would I even admit, try to be a politician. But that's where all these politicians have lost their moral compass. It's not about money. It's not about power. It should be about what you can do for the people. The divide between the people and the police officers in this county is terrible because of situations like we have at our sheriff's department, we have at our city police department. The officers need to be able to do their job and know that somebody has their back. Because we're asking them to put themselves in harm's way. For what? Now they can be sued and lose their house, their vehicles, family, because somebody didn't like the way they put handcuffs on, didn't like the way they looked at them when they crossed the street. I mean, that's ridiculous to ask our officers to do that and still expect them to run toward danger and save somebody's life.
It's a tough call I have to make, so thanks, Bill. John, why don't you give us your perspective?
Where do I start? Like a mosquito in a nudist colony. Okay. I fell in the Tea Party shortly after seeing what kind of what news media it turned into. I used to depend on certain news from known outlets. And I realized that they weren't churning out news anymore. They were churning out propaganda, nothing more than lies. This started a long time ago. The actual process had to begin somewhere around 1908. And about that time we have a constitutional amendment for the Federal Reserve Act, okay? Then you go Amendment 17. You keep on going, and the Constitution has been eroded in each and every, almost every circumstance, albeit the 20th Amendment for women's suffrage. Getting women on the board might have been the best thing we ever did, okay? I'm big on that. Here's the issue I saw. I worked I was federally trained as a CDC epidemiologist. I did my job, knocking on doors to creating the statistics, to creating area issues where the tracks of various diseases were. And sometimes I was rewarded, sometimes because of my methods, I cut to the chase sometimes. I was criticized, I was reprimanded, okay? So I couldn't do my job the way it should be. Now the community loved it because I got disease out of the community with the community's help. Sometimes, and the clients themselves. I enjoyed the clients. I worked at my job because I enjoyed one thing, the people, we the people. The opportunity came in 2018. I ran into a gentleman who was part of the Tea Party, okay? And when I sort of researched the Tea Party, it was we the people of the Tea Party. That's what it means. Now in Maryland, T stands for taxed enough already. I mean, no doubt in my mind, but we the people as the foundation of the Tea Party is to return things back to the Constitution fundamentals and the Declaration of Independence together. And there's a codicil within the Declaration of Independence that says if you have the ability to do things that you are prescribed, you are commanded to get those things done. And it's well within, I don't have the exact words, but it's right after the God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right there. Those are the three principles that this country was founded on. Okay? And the Tea Party is supposed to be the vanguard of that. That's why it grew from 2009 to 2010. The Tea Party in Maryland, and I've got to keep going because I know I don't have time. The Tea Party in Maryland began, Neil Parrott, who's the founder, along with a couple of other fellas, and they stood outside for their 501c3 in 2009. They got it on December 31st, 2016. Thank you, Ms. Lois Lerner, Ms. Paz, and several other folks that work at the IRS. Now, there were other groups for other political connections that got their 501c3 before they filled out the final form. And if you fill out a 501c3, you're in for a penny, in for a pound. It is night and day work just to get it done. I did it for another organization that was an AIDS clearinghouse network. But we got it done in 3 months. Now, how'd that happen? Okay, so I recognize that the struggle is ongoing. There's a constant issue for growth, overgrowth of federal government. It's a constant issue for not looking at the local issues that affect we the people. If it doesn't pass the muster for liberty and freedom, it cannot become law. Okay? How about I stop there, because this is part of it, because if I get started, it will be midnight before I get done, at least. And I won't run out of breath.
Well, if anybody wants to have some Canadian conversation whatsoever, we'll certainly ask them to have a conversation with you. Okay?
That will be fine.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Lasher.
Yeah. Well, I'm David Lasher. I am your Libertarian candidate for governor here in Maryland. And speaking of hats, the hat that I wear when I'm not standing as a candidate is IT executive. So I run a 50-person consulting firm with my business partner. And the other hat, of course, is the family hat. And so I have wife and daughter in Annapolis. And I've got to tell you, it was a long and expensive drive out here today.
Of course.
I hit $80 on filling up the tank on the way out for the first time. I remember when my dad hit $10 once and was cursing about that many years ago. Mm-hmm. But why did I make the drive? I made the drive out here because in Rick's emails, I looked at the bottom and I saw the word unity. I came here for that word, right? The unity. And I decided to, I'll get to why and when I decided to run, but what I and my running mate Christiana are all about is it's okay to disagree. Okay? It's okay to disagree. Let's have those conversations, but let's have them civilly, right? And let's find where we can cooperate to make Maryland a better place for all of us. Right? That's where we are at our core. It can talk about issues or anything else, but it's because unity was what was at the core of this meeting. That Christiana's sick, by the way, so couldn't make it, but that I'm out here. Okay. So libertarian, I'll say a few words on that, a few of my themes and issues, and then I'll pass on. The Libertarian Party. I don't know that many people know about the Libertarian Party. Obviously, it has the word liberty at its core. But the reason that I joined it and have remained pleased with that decision is because at its essence, the Libertarian Party is the only party that is dedicated to a principle. It's called the non-aggression principle. And there's some jargon for it, but the non-aggression principle says, means, thou shalt not use force to get your own way. Okay? It's the golden rule, okay? That we have in religion. And for me, my personal interpretation of it is I'm a libertarian because I have abiding faith in the ability of people to make decisions for themselves and their loved ones. Okay? That's where I'm coming from. Before I get to my themes, I'll draw the contrast, which is I am old enough to have been in the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union. I was there in the summer of 1983 as a student. And when I was there, that's what gave me an appreciation for what we have here in America in terms of liberty and justice and prosperity. Okay? All three. I have become alarmed at the way the texture of society here in the United States has begun to feel too much like what I experienced in the summer of 1983 in the Soviet Union. It's very concerning. But I don't think that we're going off the cliff yet, right? Good people coming together with good ideas, I think we can make a difference. I support the Constitution of the States, by the way. I had previously known about that. I think that's a great idea. My themes, along with Christiana, that bind everything together in our campaign are opportunity, accountability, and civility. So it's opportunity for all, accountability from all, and civility towards all. That's us. A few issues from the conversation today. Term limits. I thought I was alone in my enthusiasm for term limits. I find that I'm not. I'm pleased about that. I think that it's misunderstood what term limits can do. For me, I think people need to churn in and out of public service. I think that's part of it. But I also think if you have term limits, in the legislature at least, you'll have 25% or more of the legislature at any given time that is not up for re-election. They don't have to raise money. They can vote their consciences. It's not going to be a panacea, but I think it'll help immensely. And so term limits, if elected government, if I tried to submit a bill to the General Assembly, it would die in committee. Right? So I think that I would use the office to bring about the power of persuasion, right? The power of prestige of office to do a constitutional amendment for term limits. Another idea that I am very keen upon is coming out of the pandemic. I think we saw across the country, all levels of government, both parties, extraordinary abuse of executive powers in the name of the health crisis.
Way over the top and stupid.
And so I have ready. There's a model. I have a model bill to submit to the Assembly if elected on day one. I would submit a bill that puts great limits and review powers on executive powers under a health crisis. 60 days, then you have to go to the legislature and review by the judiciary.
Or go a bit lower as far as the days.
We could arm wrestle about that, but if we get something in place so that we don't go through what we just all went through, frankly, around the globe, right? So that's one. And I'd written down, judicial transparency. Nobody mentioned the judiciary. They do try to be conscientious, but we don't know what they're rendering from the bench, right? It is not visible to us, and transparency for the judiciary has been voted down in the past. I think that all three branches, we need to see more accountability. So on the judiciary side, I would say it's transparency. Okay. So there's a few ideas, a little flavor of who I am. I did get into the race, I will say, in November of 2020 when Larry Hogan, for whom I used to work at the Department of Health, when he said that we don't have a constitutional right not to wear a mask, I talked to my wife and I said, I need to step forward and give the people of Maryland a different type of choice in November 2022. So that's what I'm doing.
And now there's studies out that shows that masks absolutely do nothing.
Yeah.
Because anybody, I've been a volunteer firefighter since 2010. Anybody that's been through hazmat ops knows that those masks do absolutely nothing to stop airborne pathogens, anything that's airborne, from coming into your. If you have smoke in your mouth and you have a mask on and you blow it out, and it comes out all over the place, that means everybody's getting in. So it's the same principle.
So as governor, my style would be it's coercion, not persuasion. Right? Well, reverse that. We had too much of that. At least I was monitoring myself, right?
Yeah.
So it's about persuading people, not coercing them, right? And so just follow
the pandemic did teach us the states have a lot of power, and they've just forgotten that over time. They've been so used to taking that.
10th Amendment is not appreciated, right?
Yeah. So if we can get to the point where the states learn to take their power back and give the voice to the people, truly to be reflective of that. Everyone, the truckers movement said they work for us, and my contention is you don't necessarily work for us. You represent us. You should be a mirror of what your people are requesting, and not just a special interest.
And to build on that, Christiana, in Washington County, you might want to do things differently than Anne Arundel County.
Sure.
That's fine. Right? So we're very much about localization and decentralization as the right approach. So follow our campaign, learn a little bit, learn about us, invite us to any events that you have. We're all about the conversations and working with others in unity for gun Maryland.
I have a question. Thanks. Where would you stand that on Second Amendment?
Fundamental right.
That's a big proponent right now is the Second Amendment. I mean, few years ago, we were able to get Western Maryland to be Pro 2A sanctuary counties. Frederick County, Washington County, Allegheny County, and Garrett County.
Yeah.
And we fought hard for that because we had our own sheriff here that was trying to just pretty much make everybody felons just for traveling on a county road if you had a utility knife in your vehicle.
Yeah, there's very much, there are things we can do for gun violence. I'll just, to close out on that, for gun violence, the number one thing that we could do here in Maryland is end the war on drugs, right? Especially in the city of Baltimore, remove the incentive for profit and violence from the drug trade. I don't think that any single policy could do more for ending gun homicides than attacking the drug trade in that way. So that's just one idea. Right?
Well, I can tell you from experience, if a criminal wants a gun, they're going to get a gun. They're more readily available. You can go 5 minutes from here and you can purchase any firearm you want without a background check. So the background checks are only for honest people that never plan on doing anything with a firearm besides for legal means. So if you look at states that have passed constitutional carry, West Virginia being a prime example, you've had states where they've had people show up with firearms to do criminal intent, and somebody that was carrying a firearm actually stopped the crime from happening. Because you're going to have that. My experience, 24 years around bail enforcement and bringing fugitives back, if most criminals do not want any type of confrontation. They want quick in and out, gone with no confrontation whatsoever. So if they know that they're going to meet an armed suspect, trust me, they're not even going to try it. 99.9% of the time, and then you have those times where people are not in the right state of mind, which should never be around a firearm to begin with. And I do agree there should be mental background checks on.
Well, so from working at the Department of Health here in Maryland, I'm very sensitive to that. And some folks might not. This might not be an area that we all agree on, but I think that the behavioral health checks are important. We're seeing that in a lot of the mass shootings, especially. But that also addresses the number. About 60% of deaths by gun are unfortunately suicides, right? And not taking away from mass shootings, but they're both behavior areas in which some better action, supports, and services around behavioral health could really make a difference.
Most people know what the number one killer is in the United States of people every year.
I don't.
Alcohol-related deaths while driving. Every year, that's the biggest killer of all. During the pandemic, liquor stores were allowed to stay open, but churches were closed. That's a problem with that.
Well, and you saw the surge in opioid.
Yes.
Opioid-related deaths. It was criminal.
Yes. Look at all your officer-related deaths that are happening now. Officer-related suicides. Now, when you take the Bill of Rights away, you're going to have the same thing. You're going to have a huge uptick, especially if they know they're being sued. They can lose their house, their family. It's going to cause a major problem.
Thank you for your perspective there. I really appreciate it, and that brings us up to Ellen. I was happy to be here at the
candidate forum/debate.
She did very well. I was there. She did very well.
Excellent.
So hello everyone, my name is Marielle Roca. I'm running for Congress here in the 6th Congressional District. And thanks to Rick he extended an invite to the meeting even before we met at the debate. And I think that it's amazing. Me being a first-time candidate, we don't get that a lot. Unless you're in the group or in the clique, like you mentioned, you really don't get support. So I really appreciate you reaching out, and then we met, and I'm glad to be here. A little bit about me: I was born in Puerto Rico. We lived in New York City for about 10 years and moved back to Puerto Rico when I was 13. I joined the Air Force in 2005, straight from Puerto Rico. Served in Afghanistan in 2007, and ended up getting out of the military in 2010, and actually ended up here in the district because of Fort Detrick. I am trained by the military in supply chain management, medical logistics, which during COVID came full front and center. Medical logistics became very important, and moved here to Hagerstown, bought my first house here. My son was born here in Meredith Medical Center. And now I currently live in Frederick. I've got 2 kids. They go to Frederick County Public Schools. I got a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old. 14-year-old is going to high school next year, and my 10-year-old is going to middle school. And you know, I decided to run for Congress about 2 years ago. And everybody asked me, why did you decide to get into politics? Why in the world? And I really can't pinpoint a specific thing other than, you know, my entire adult life I've been serving in the military, in the Air Force. I worked at Fort Detrick for 10 years as a federal employee. And when I started running for office, I don't know what specifically, I just know that every day that goes by and things get crazier and we see the insanity happening all over the country and in DC, it's more validation that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't know what the end result is going to be. I know that I'm working my butt off, getting out there, talking to voters, and you know, it's one of the things that I've been most surprised about is getting out and door knocking and talking to voters, and the need and the yearning from actual voters and people like us to talk and feel like they're being heard. And to answer your question, when I get to Congress, what am I going to do? I just really think that, like a lot of people have mentioned here, we need more people that have gone through life experiences, that have gone through things, and are not those career politicians that are in DC. I do think that DC is not going to, you know, getting to DC is not going to fix our problems, but DC is part of the problem, and we see it every day. We see it when I go out and I talk to people and I door knock. I always ask them, what's the most important issue to you? And I always get the same top 3. Number 1, it's the border. The border absolutely needs to be secure. Being in the military and appreciating law and order, once we start securing the border, that's going to start fixing a lot of the things, like we're seeing, like the opioid crisis, especially here in Washington County. We've got probably the worst county in the United States when it comes to the opioid crisis. And then my opinion, our current congressman, David Trone, he is so concerned about the opioid crisis, but the one thing that he can do to help at least alleviate the problem is vote to secure the border, and he doesn't do it. It's just mind-boggling to me. Number 2, economy and inflation, which again, securing the border is going to help with those things. But I mean, I have a Tahoe, a truck out there. You said $80. I wish it was $80 to fill up my truck. $100, and it stops. I learned about 3 months ago that it doesn't let you go past $100 at the gas station. I never knew that. And then 3, education. I mean, me being a mom of 2 kids in Frederick County Public Schools, and for years I've been saying, you know, we don't want Frederick to become Montgomery County North, and now this year it's starting to happen. And I'm seeing how the lack of respect from some of these school boards of like, we don't care what you're gonna say, what you say, we're gonna teach your kids this anyway. I think those are the top 3 things that we've got to tackle. And there's a couple other things, you know, being supply chain management trained. There's a lot of things, other things that I think, like you mentioned, these past 2 years, going through this pandemic, there's so many things that I think nobody ever thought were going to happen. And my worry is, what are we doing to learn from our mistakes? Like, what mitigation strategies is the government doing to make sure that the next time this happens, because it's going to happen again, that we're not capped at the knees. There's just things like the Jones Act. That's one of the things that I think that needs to be reformed, but at least paused until the economy can restore itself, and just a couple other things. But I'm happy to be here. We're doing great things. We're getting a lot of great feedback, and I'll be here for a while. If you guys have any questions, want to chat, I got some information.
What do you think about your new superintendent with pro CRT?
The Frederick County Public Schools. I mean, I haven't really looked too much into her, but I just know, I mean, it's basic, to me, it's Terry Alvin 2.0 probably, or worse.
She came from Montgomery County.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So yeah. Thankfully, my kids are older. I could not imagine being a parent with a 5-year-old going to school right now.
Oh
my kids know better, but it's just, but.
I implore you, what we all saw on the slides, the runaway debt.
Oh, yes.
please have the courage to not just cut taxes, but also cut spending. It has to be both.
Please.
Right? And because the budget is so large, small changes will make a big difference. My critique of the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party is going to have that kind of courage.
I have somewhere else I have to be. Do you have
there?
Do you have any? Go up here. All right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Well, add back to your.
Just from what I'm sorry, just from what I've learned with running for sheriff the last 2.5 months, I've been in one debate that I was invited to and then I was uninvited to because the other 3 candidates didn't want me there. But I hear them on budgets and they want to spend this outrageous amount of money that doesn't need to be spent. Like $1 million rooms to follow these motorcycle guys around and find out where they're going to be able to get them off the street. It doesn't take that. You know, technology is nice, but when you're talking about $1 million rooms to fly all over the place, and then when the motorcycles are gone, then you've got $1 million rooms that are going to set something.
They go out to T-Born too, 3 shots.
So spending is not only just a budgetary problem. Organizations studied a lot of this. Silicon Valley executive with large companies became smaller companies, and a little bit of everything. I can tell you unequivocally, when there's too much money, there's too much time to think about things that are not important. And you can take an organization of 100 people, and one day tell them they're 80, and they're going to tell you they can't do the job. And 2 months later, they'll say, we're doing it all just fine. 6 months later, that 80-person organization is 50, and they'll say, we absolutely can't do this, but they will, because they'll find out all the things that they were doing that weren't necessary. So we have so much government overreach because people are going into work every day thinking about, what do I do to keep this organization thriving and me at the center of all of this?
Oh, yeah,
And they
totally.
lose focus on what's important. But if you take away the spending, and all of a sudden they got to get the core job done.
Government agencies at any level of government are monopoly providers of services. They don't compete against anybody. They don't have that discipline and accountability. They just keep chugging right along at the same budget levels. And I saw it firsthand in our Department of Health here. You're right. You can reduce spending and actually get better results.
I think part of that too is the government needs to get a little bit more efficient. There's so many, working in the federal government, how inefficient. I mean, I was in procurement and you always get money at the very last minute and then it's like, hurry up and spend it. And you gotta spend it all because if you don't spend it, next year we're not gonna get the same amount of money.
That's right, exactly. I mean, I've been to the Washington County Board, or County Commissioners for the last 2.5, 3 months since right before I started running for sheriff. And I've seen them spend money like you would not believe. Giving money to museums. They gave a black organization $29,000 for a Juneteenth celebration downtown Hagerstown. But then when I go in front of them to try to allocate money for our police officers to have the Bill of Rights reinstated, I've been getting a runaround now for a month and a half.
I think what we can all see is that there's a lot of varied opinions. I was taught a long time ago in the management world that everyone listens to their own radio station. It's called WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Yep.
And people will hear and listen to what affects them, right? And you may tune into one thing, and you may tune into another. We all tune into what affects us because we're looking for things to be real. I've made a few people mad when they said, "Well, why do you like Trump?" She said. He eats his steaks well done with ketchup. That's all I needed to know right there. He eats steaks well done with ketchup. I relate to that.
He wasn't an establishment person that bowed down to anybody.
Well, right, and there's many people that hate him for different reasons, but the fact that I could relate to the fact that I eat my meat the same way he did.
Well done with ketchup?
Well done with ketchup.
That's my wife right there.
I don't do that same thing, but I tell people, look, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. I was told over 6 years ago by a sheriff's deputy that I went out to pick up a person out of jail one time, and one of the guys from the task force come out and told me, you need to watch who you associate yourself with. I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, you seriously need to watch who you associate yourself with. I said, I don't know that individual that's back there. His family came to me about bonding him out. I said, you're around the same people. I said, but what makes you think that you're better than that person that's getting ready to come out in jail doors because they made a mistake does not make you any better than they are. They're human beings just like we are. They made a mistake. I don't judge. So.
And the principles of life that I've always been taught in management is activity equals results. If you want results, you got to go do the activity. In fact, you got to do the door knocking as a politician. You got to get out there. You got to do the activity for results. But I also know that you can be lucky sometimes because you understand what luck is. L-U-C-K is laboring under correct knowledge. You have to go out and get enough knowledge to go into that environment to feel that you have the ability to stand on both legs and have that conversation. And you can't be afraid. Fear, false expectations appearing real. When you let fear box you in a corner, not allow you to step forward, not allow you to go do things, that paralyzes you. Then you get analysis paralysis going on and nobody gets nothing done. And they're all afraid in DC now to do this or say that because someone's going to then try to go dox them or cancel them or whatever. Well,
protecting your paycheck over people.
Yeah, you gotta, and it's the old Spock thing about the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. Okay, I get that, and when you're in a leadership role, you have to understand that you can send troops or people to their death by a simple stroke of a pen, going, we got to go do this. And some people aren't equipped for that. I mean, heavy was the head that wears the crown kind of concept. So anybody that's willing to step up and run for office, anyone that's willing to go out there and say, here's what it's all about. I appreciate you and I admire that because, I had a few people approach me and say, you ought to be running for office. And I'm like, no, I'm a better people pusher behind the scenes than I am the candidate themselves. I put on promote concerts, as you saw I had advertised up here. I promote concerts, I do outdoor movies. I'm doing an outdoor movie this Saturday, provided no rain over Mogginsville. I just in Frederick did a movie over at Sophia Manning's Playground the other night and helped them raise, they say over 2,000, and we're going to match that. My insurance company will match with us, so they're going to get like 4,000. I'll be going over and just putting on a movie for them. So
you're going to be in Mogginsville this Saturday or
this Saturday coming up, the 11th. I'm supposed to be in Mogginsville. Putting on Cloudy with a chance of meatballs at the
Mogginsville, Brewerton.
Oh, really? Okay.
At the park.
I might stop out and watch.
I'm praying for the rain not to be there. It'll be value 45-ish as soon as it gets dark enough. But I'm out there putting myself forward to do that. I got involved with Convention of States, because my zoo, guy Peter showed up and took his 2 tigers alliance. And I'm going, how can that happen? I'm out there walking a picket line, okay, holding a picket sign. I've never done that before in my life. And I'm there going, how can a charity come in here and do that? Well, the government gave them these powers, these non-government organizations, allow them to come in there and just say, hey, I can be a better guardian than you can an owner, and just take stuff. And I went, no, I mean, when you have a little baby, lioness that's bottle fed and raised, 8 years old, and then you come in and shoot her 3 times with a train gun and drag her out like a sack of potatoes and throw in a van, and take to Colorado and say, here's your new home. And then she gets back within the first weeks of being there.
They're all dead.
Okay? So, I've been peed on by a tiger before, so, when you've been peed on by a tiger, you show appreciation for what they're on the hearts to go through. I sell life insurance for a living too, and that has helped me as a rural district captain because I made 300 phone calls to people that signed a petition, thanking them for signing and asking them to get more involved before I ever got my first volunteer. It took me 300 phone calls to get my first volunteer. Don't count the S's, count the O's, right? That's for life insurance training. And now I'm up to 18 volunteers in this county, Rob being one of them. Right over here, Michelle, she's actually from Jefferson, Maryland, but she signed on to be a volunteer, and this is about her 4th activity she's been to here just in less than a month's time. She actually got to speak on stage with Mark Meckler the other night, the head of COS, because they wanted some new insider purview, and she said she was going, and I recommended her, and she got up here and did a bang-up job. So, so it's a matter of people just finding that heart, finding that cause, and going out there and executing on it. And the more people can see your true sincerity, they can feel you, and they can adapt to the, whether or not you eat your steaks with a hamburger with ketchup or not, but if they can feel that vibe with you, that's going to get you a place in their heart and their mind. Okay, so thank you for being here. I thought I'd have a few more candidates here. I mean, I thought I was going to have a bunch of Democrats in here too, which I don't have a problem with that. I went to the Democrat meeting here last month. And I offered this, can I come speak to your organization on the PowerPoint, do whatever? And they said, no. But I stayed. I even helped carry stuff out of their cars at the end of the night. It was being helpful. And I asked him, again, he says, I don't think so. And then the other guy was there helping carry too. We were walking in his car. I said, so you think they'll let me talk? I hate you. I hate your organization. Never talk to me again. Like, Okay, well,
Sure open-minded, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, here's what I look at, they said they're gonna be here, so they talk the talk, but they didn't walk the talk.
So,
That's it.
but
Walk the talk.
again, false expectations appearing real here, okay? And I'm a life insurance salesman, so let me wrap up with this. There's a date of birth, there's a date of death on your tombstone. There's this other little thing in the middle called the dash. Your job is to make that dash as big and fat and wide as possible. Go out there and live your life with it. Most men only get 916 months of life on average. Childhood is 216 months of that 916. So we get 700 months of adult life to go make our mark in the world. Okay? What have you done with it lately? Okay? Well, I'm trying to live my life to the fullest and make every mark I can right now. And you women, you get an extra 972 months of life, an extra 60 months. Why? You drive us crazy, and we have to get out of here sooner is what happens.
And we die first, yes.
Remember,
Wait, I thought it was because men do crazier things than women. You put a ladder between the two buildings where you're not supposed to.
First time I bungee jumped, she says, "Is your insurance paid?" I said, "Yes." She has a good jump.
Go ahead, do it.
I've water rafted, I've zip lined, I've cave explored, I've scuba dived, I've skydived, right? And and I've done it because, well, false expectations for your real. If it scares you, you go do it. The horse bucks you off, you get back on, you ride that horse, and then you get off and treat your leaves, okay?
Yeah, there you go. So see your doctor afterwards.
If you want some real adrenaline, come with me and get shot at that.
We'll do it.
I hear you. I have a true appreciation. I trained for 10 years with the.
I've been to Baltimore many times, and let me tell you, Baltimore is another.
Well, I trained for 10 years with the 3-4 Vietnam Green Beret.
You survived Baltimore?
Oh, yeah.
And
I've been in places, not trying to be any type of racial at all, but I've been in places that white people were not welcome.
Well, I was just Spanish for Minnesota, Baltimore, and I take the new company to knock on the door, 9 times out of 10, they will give me their stuff back and not complain.
Yeah.
You can take anything you need. Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. Thanks for inviting me. Like I said,
I like your story, I like your supply chain,
I'm Frederick, Washington, Garrett, and Allegheny. Yeah. And then the top part of Montgomery County.
Oh, okay.
I got to change my tune a little bit when I go around in Montgomery County.
Oh, yeah.
Dave.
Mary Ellen. I just told you I know we've met somewhere, some meeting, because I recognize both of you. I just don't remember where. You live in Jefferson?
Yeah.
Okay, I used to live in Brunswick. Hagerstown, Brunswick, that's
Well, we're
That's the place where I'm trying to figure out, can we calibrate.
Do you go to any of the Frederick meetings?
What we're doing in the house.
No, we went to one.
What if you had,
well, my biggest thing
What's
is.
a Republican? Are you Republican?
Not only that,
And we went to
My biggest thing is they're fighting
It's too
for.
early.
Okay.
They're fighting for.
I feel like I've seen that before.
Sure.
Okay, they wanna say, okay, we want.
Maybe getting ice cream.
Oh, that's
They
right.
want to
I don't
last
know
mile.
where.
Yeah, we were election judges as well, maybe
they're not
that's what it
interested,
was.
Five-year-old make their decisions, we're not gonna watch nothing to tell y'all.
That was it.
In junior high, we carried our 22s to school.
Are you gonna do it again?
With the bullet in this pocket, the bullets in this pocket.
Yeah.
The history teacher, when we went out after school, when the same thing shot over here at third class, we shot the rifles at after school.
Yep.
12 hours. You're there.
Kids that learn from their parents, right?
My kid was
They learn
scared to
respect for
take
the
his mask off when Frederick
They learn how to
County
be responsible.
public school said, okay, you have to wear it. Like for a week, he fought
All the
me.
way across the board.
And one day I had to say, because then I was like, you're not wearing a mask. And then he would go to his state parent or school and ask them for like the disposable bags. And one day I had to say, don't you dare.
Guys started shooting at him.
And he came home and was
And it's
like,
like,
I was like, how was your day? He was like, it was great. I was like, see, I told you you're gonna be fine.
Somebody
So damaged that it's been done to us.
And my son is 10.
Because that's where everything's taught nowadays.
Really?
I'm scared. See me here, I'm 60, over 60, I'm thinking, I can do it, you can do it.
I know. I mean, I'm not saying like, I know COVID, like, I'm not saying, I'm not saying I don't think COVID's real. I had it like
You
twice.
can't have that when you have
But
a tyrant
I
running
feel like
the division like he is
get back to
now.
normal. Like, I don't want us to turn into China where they're like going into people's houses and dragging them out.
City police,
Right.
sheriff's department.
Oh, yeah,
they
they
have
starving to
eight
death,
working.
They take them to the constant, like, it looks like Carpenters campus, the COVID quarantine camp. And there was one video, it was like literally this, imagine this room with 200 tents lined up. That's where they stuck the people that had COVID.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
The officers themselves. One officer's ready to stitch another officer out just so he thinks he can boost this up.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. All right, well, you guys have a great drive. Good luck. Thank you.
That's exactly
Yeah, good.
I don't know if she took her husband.
I just heard the
Thank
same by the
you.
way.
We'll see you later. In the
All right.
MDGA lawyer.
Okay, that's
Yeah, I talked to him, I met him.
Okay, see you around. Okay, people watch.
Okay.